Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Hari Pastichade Namo Mahabandanyaya Krishna Prem Dadayate Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tvise Namaha Namo Brahmanya Devaya Gopalani Taya Jagaitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. You can see I've got my green screen behind me, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, today I am going to have a little discussion about a topic which is often misunderstood, and there's really no reason for the misunderstanding. So I guess we can call this an opportunity for me to speak my realization regarding some recent Facebook posts about the origin of the soul, the jiva. So I'm not sure where to begin. The problem or the discrepancy that has been going on for a long time, or the difference of opinion, is that some devotees who are following Srila Prabhupada very strictly, I'm a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, has said that Prabhupada and the official guidelines in ISKCON are that the Jiva soul did fall from Goloka, Vrindavan, into the material world. This is based on a conversation or a letter Srila Prabhupada had back in the 1960s. Then a paper was written after Prabhupada departed that was written by some of Prabhupada's disciples that furthered the idea that actually we did fall from Goloka Vrindavan, and they based that on scriptural evidence. Recently, there was a post by a learned devotee who is making the argument that indeed we did fall from the spiritual sky, but he's implying that we fell from Goloka. From my point of view, and from most of our practical point of view, it's not relevant to our practice of Krishna consciousness, because regardless of that viewpoint, the practice is the same. Prabhupada said, when you're drowning, you don't think about how you got in, you focus on getting out. And that is the absolute truth. Our most important mission as Krishna conscious aspirants is to get out of the bodily concept of life. That's the first most important development in our Krishna consciousness. How we can I'm going to turn the camera a little toward me. It may unfortunately come into the mantra. How we can get out of the bodily concept of life, and that is where our Krishna consciousness actually begins. real Krishna consciousness will begin for us at that point. Prior to that, being in the bodily concept of life, really we don't know too much. As long as we're still identifying with the body, then the philosophy at hand that we're being given is not not realizable. It's something that we memorize, but it hasn't become realized. But when we have been blessed by Lord Krishna through the practice of Krishna consciousness to arrive at that state beyond the bodily identification, then everything that we've learned and that we are aspiring for and that we are, and that is that who God is, everything becomes clear or much clearer, and the path becomes very clear. Prabhupada, he over and over again, from the times that I heard him directly from the Vyasasan, he was speaking from the Vyasasan, giving classes. And even if I wasn't there, when I saw the classes Prabhupada gave from the Vyasasan back in the 1970s, I joined in 1970. Prabhupada always emphasized, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahma. He said it just like that, Aham Brahmasmi, you're not the body. That, I believe, is the most important message that Prabhupada had, because if we can't get to that stage of spiritual identification, if we continue to identify with the body, then we won't be able to really taste the fruit of love of God. So the body, Prabhupada would say sometimes that the Krishna consciousness is like sweet rice, but the only little speck in the sweet rice that keeps it from being completely sweet is a little speck of sand or something like that, which his analogy was that speck in our eye. He also said in our eye, that speck that keeps us from seeing Krishna is the false ego. So the identification with the body is a problem. And so that's what all of us need to focus on to get to that first level of Aham Brahmasmi. That is the most important thing. But the overall Siddhanta is always something that we need to understand regardless of our level of realization. And so oftentimes the origin of the jiva will come into focus. And although Prabhupada said over and over in the Bhagavatam, and he also reiterated Lord Krishna's words in Bhagavad Gita, that the soul doesn't fall from Vaikuntha, doesn't fall from Goloka, and is eternally conditioned from time immemorial, anadi, since the beginning of time or before the beginning of time. But on one occasion, Prabhupada said that we were sporting with Krishna long, long, long ago. On that one occasion, Prabhupada said that. And then coupled with this slogan that we have in ISKCON, which is back to Godhead, along with other statements in the Bhagavatam where Krishna says, you forgot me, you've forgotten me, remember me, you've forgotten me. In this way, there's this sense that we may have been with Krishna in the past. But then in the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada says, when Krishna was speaking with the cowherd boys, Nanda Maharaj, they were asking where they go after the death. Krishna showed them the spiritual world. And then Prabhupada purport is that for the purified disciple in Krishna consciousness, he takes birth in the womb of a gopi in Gokul, which is the manifest Vrindavan, right? The unmanifest would be Goloka. Gokul is the manifest Vrindavan, just like in India, that is Gokul. Each earth has its own Gokul, right? Many earths. Each universe has an earth. And Krishna goes from earth to earth to earth, performing his pastimes, like a road show, Prabhupada said. So he said, if you become elevated to the point or purified to the point of Krishna consciousness, then when you leave your body, you take birth in the womb of a gopi in Gokul, where Krishna is present. And Prabhupada clearly states in Krishna book that at that time, during that birth, you will see Krishna for the first time. So that clearly is telling us that we haven't seen Krishna before. Now, the cause of this latest issue or problem or this cause of this the cause of this my bringing this up is because this particular devotee is using the Bhagavatam and the words of Lord Kapila to support the idea that we did fall from the spiritual sky, but he's implying that that is Krishna Loka. He doesn't say it. I think there might be a reason why he doesn't want to say it, but there's strong words that he's using, such as Lord Chaitanya said, Jivera Swarupa Hoy Nitya Krishna Das. We are originally eternal servants of Krishna. He says, Lord Chaitanya also says in another statement that love of God does not come from any other place. It's residing within us. It has to be awoken. And so this particular devotee is then taking certain words of Lord Kapila to promote the idea that our origin must be because we are eternal servants of Krishna. This is his logic. And nothing that's eternal can be caused within the framework of time. Therefore, our eternal service began before time. And therefore, where were we in order for this to begin? And he's alluding to the idea that it began somewhere in the spiritual sky when we were in the association of Lord Krishna. And then he goes on to use this idea of dreaming, that we're not really in the material world. We're just dreaming here because our consciousness doesn't really come into touch with the material modes of nature, which happens to be true. But then he then states that based on what Lord Kapila is telling his mother, Devahuti, that it's the reflection of the soul that is being in illusion, but the real soul is always in the spiritual world, never anything to do with the material world. And it's in some type of a dream state, and that when you wake up, you'll realize you're just right there. He doesn't explain, this particular Prabhu, devotee, how we can be in the spiritual world in a dreaming state. Now, the macro economics, or the macro, the larger picture of what we're hearing is not what you will hear from any other acharya, from Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, any of the Mahajans, any of our Vaishnavacharyas prior to Lord Chaitanya or after. Neither will you find that the soul, the jiva, fell from the spiritual world, meaning Vaikuntha Goloka. You will not find in any of the Puranas or any of the Upanishads. It's not mentioned by Sukadev, not mentioned by Vyasadeva, it's not mentioned by Narada Muni. But this particular devotee, and there are certain devotees like that, have so much enthusiasm for Srila Prabhupada that even though his statements are generally always in line with previous acharyas, if he makes a statement which is apparently contradictory to what he says elsewhere, they, meaning these devotees, take those statements as being more important than the homogeneous or the harmonic statements, right? Harmonic statements, the ones that are other acharyas have agreed with. These Prabhupada anugas take the unusual or the one-off statement as being more correct than any previous acharya. The reason why they're doing this is because they want to place Srila Prabhupada above any other acharya. Because probably they're seeing how great he was in distributing Krishna consciousness. And I can attest that Srila Prabhupada is like nobody else. He is and was 100% always constantly in Krishna consciousness. It's like something we've never seen or witnessed before. It is absolutely, it was incredible. Anyone who's still around in Krishna consciousness who had personal contact with Prabhupada can tell you it's unbelievable. He is the cause of all of our wanting to be Krishna conscious because we witnessed someone who was 24 hours a day Krishna conscious, not something that's you see very often. And because of his greatness, there are devotees that want to give him that individual or that notoriety and say that because of his pure Krishna consciousness, he is going to supersede any other acharya. Now, this particular devotee, in order to fulfill his logic, right? In order to add fire or fuel to his logic, he says Srila Bhaktivinoda and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta were also in agreement with Srila Prabhupada. They also all agreed, he says, that we are eternally serving as servants of Krishna, as Lord Chaitanya said. And so he uses this logical idea that being eternal servants of Krishna means that is our only position. We are always eternally serving. And anything that's away from that, like serving in the material world, is not real. So therefore, again, he gets back to the argument that this means that we are all originally in Krishna consciousness in Vaikuntha or Goloka. There's no reason, however, to counter this logic. I'm saying there's no reason why the spirit soul, the individual jiva, can't be tatashta, neutral, in a Brahmajyoti or Brahman place of neutrality. And because the jiva is infinitesimal, Prabhupada has told us, Shastra has told us, Shruti has told us that the size of the jiva is so small that it requires shelter. And when the jiva is in a position where it does not have shelter, it's in a state of its own, that tatastha, neutral state, it requires shelter because it's not independent. So it becomes attracted either to the spiritual world or the material world. There are, according to Srila Bhakti Vinod, Nitya Siddha jivas in the first that have come from the first quadruple expansion, or actually from Balaram directly, I believe, go directly into the spiritual world and they never see Maya. In the second quadruple expansion of Vasudev, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Mahavishnu is coming from that, I believe, Shankarshan, and the jivas are emanating from Mahavishnu, oftentimes come into the material world. Srila Bhakti Vinod says some still go into the spiritual world, but the majority come into the material world. The idea being that the soul requires shelter. So it's either going to be attracted to Maya or to Krishna. Impersonalists who have regained their original position as Atma, spirit soul, they exist apparently independently without shelter. They're not in the spiritual world. I mean, they're not in Vaikuntha, they're not in Goloka, they're not in the material atmosphere. They've transcended that. They're existing in an Atmaram state of eternal existence. But Lord Brahma says, Aruha Krichena Param Padam Tata. The verse in the Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada likes to quote, I believe it's 413. I'm not sure if I recall the exact verse number in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but Lord Brahma, being enlivened within by Lord Krishna, and he's speaking to actually Lord Vishnu, I believe, says that due to impure intelligence, the liberated soul who has not taken shelter of your lotus feet falls again into the material world. Even though he could live or be a very long time in that state, at some point or other, Lord Brahma says, either he goes to the spiritual world if he meets a pure devotee and he could progress from there, but if he is an impersonalist who is adverse to the lotus feet of the Lord, then he comes back down into the material body, material attraction, material birth, material death. Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, before he left this material world, he told Uddhava in a conversation that the living entity has been here since time immemorial. Krishna doesn't say that the living entity was in the spiritual world, then he fell. None of the demigods say that. None of our Mahajans say that. Lord Chaitanya does not say that. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, having gone there, meaning the spiritual realm, the Vaikunthas, right? One does not return. Elsewhere, it mentions the reason why no one returns from the spiritual world is because of the affection that Krishna has for his devotees. He maintains them, meaning he binds them through affection. So Krishna is therefore saying, because of my affection, no one falls. So if you say that you fell from the Goloka, that would be against what Lord Krishna says. Krishna does not say you go into a dream state. The only dream state mentioned in our Vaishnava ideology is the dreamless state that one experiences as an Atma, self, soul, while inside the body of Lord Mahavishnu. Shushupti is the term. It is a dreamless state of existence that the living entity is experiencing. It's not the same as Brahman state of self-realization. It's a dreamless state. It's almost like an unconscious, conscious state. And so there is no mention in any of our scripture about a jiva dreaming about Maya while in Vaikuntha or Goloka. So coming back to my original point, Prabhupada is the best of the best. He has distributed Krishna consciousness in a way that no one else has been able to do. He is a true, incredible acharya. We may never see anyone like him, at least not in our lifetime or many, many lifetimes. Even Prabhupada himself said his books will be the law book for humanity for the next 10,000 years. So we may not see anyone again in this human plane of existence on the level of Srila Prabhupada. Still, that does not mean, that does not give any of us the right to put Srila Prabhupada in terms of his writings to say that even though this is contradictory to other things Prabhupada has said, let alone what other acharyas have said, because it's Srila Prabhupada, it's perfect. That would not be correct. And we would call that illogic. Some call it apasiddhanta. We have to be careful. We can't just say anything. We have to strive to speak what is consistent amongst all of our acharyas and Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna. I'm going to give a good example of what I mean with a story. This was told, and I believe it's in the memory books of Siddhanta Prabhu. I heard it also firsthand. Guru Das, who is one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada, he tells the story. Once when he was in Mayapur, he was sitting in the room with Srila Prabhupada with several other high-ranking devotees and sannyasi leaders. At that time, Prabhupada asked a question. He asked everyone a question, same question. And someone answered. I believe it was Tamal Krishna. And Prabhupada said, no. And he gave the answer he wanted to give, which was the correct answer at that time. And then he went ahead and spoke about that. A few months later, Gurudas, who was traveling with Srila Prabhupada, was with Prabhupada in the Bhaktivedanta Manor in England, in a room where there were several high-ranking devotees, not the same devotees that were in Mayapur. Tamal Krishna was not there, apparently, or not the same devotee who answered the question, because Srila Prabhupada asked the same question again. It may not have been in a room, it may have been in a class. I don't recall that part, so please forgive me. But the exact same question was asked. Gurudas, feeling the moment, knew the answer because he was in Mayapur. He therefore blurted out the answer exactly as Srila Prabhupada had given in Mayapur. After saying no, he gave the answer. And that answer is what Gurudas responded with to the question, fully expecting Prabhupada to say yes. And Prabhupada said no. And he went ahead and gave the other answer in Mayapur. Does this mean that Srila Prabhupada is confused? No. We cannot predicate the mind of the Guru. That we know. The pure devotee. He is fully transcendental. We don't attempt to predicate his mind. If Prabhupada says, not a leaf falls from Vaikuntha, no one leaves Vaikuntha. He has said you could leave because you have free will, but no one does. Why? Because they are in love with Krishna. Prabhupada has said this, and these are in his books, but on an occasion, through a letter or a conversation, which, by the way, Prabhupada said that these letters and conversations with individual devotees are not meant for widespread distribution. He said this. He said, I never knew that these letters and my conversations with certain devotees will be widespread. He didn't know. But if there is a conflict or a difference in what Prabhupada's saying, does not mean that Prabhupada is confused. It doesn't mean that the opposite is right. What Prabhupada taught us is Guru Shastra Sadhana. He said, if it's not in my books, it's not correct. The books are the basis. Because the books are the writings and teachings of the previous acharyas. The books are the commentaries on the Puranas, the Upanishads, and the previous acharyas. Sometimes in conversation, Prabhupada can say something that will never be written in a book. Let us be careful about coming to conclusions which come about due to a fertile brain, where some devotee thinks he's so intelligent that he can take 2 + 2 and make it 4, or I'm sorry, 2 + 1 and make it 4, when it's not. You cannot say Srila Bhaktivinoda, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada, and say, and give no weight to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, or any of the previous acharyas, or any of the previous Gaudiya Vaishnava literatures. You cannot do that. You cannot separate out and say modern versus old. That's not our philosophy. It's a consistent message over time. Starting for us with Rupa Goswami, because we are Gaudiya Vaishnavas, which means we focus our attention on Vaishnavism from the time of Lord Chaitanya. So we don't want to draw conclusions on a shotgun basis. Oh, Prabhupada. I'm only going to focus on what Prabhupada said. And if he said we came from Goloka or fell, I'm going to focus on that statement alone because he is the current Acharya. That is not how the Parampara system works. If you do that, you will not get proper knowledge. If you only focus on Prabhupada in lieu of any contradictory statements he made as being bona fide, you will not get proper knowledge. If you think that the jiva is in a dream state in Goloka and then fell to earth or the material world, you are wrong. That is fanaticism. That is not correct. Lord Krishna tells Uddhava that the jiva has been here since time immemorial. He does not tell Uddhava that the jiva fell from Goloka or is in a dream state in Goloka. These statements never come from Kapila Dev or any plenary expansion of Lord Krishna or Krishna himself or any of the Mahajans, Prahlad, Bali, Yamaraj, Shiva. No one makes this statement. How can you? You cannot say, my Prabhupada is so great that he is greater than anyone that I just mentioned. It does not work that way. That is Apasiddhanta. So, try to remain in the parampara. Don't get wild ideas. Don't be taken on this ride into a false idea or a false paradise about where the jiva came from. Don't think that the statements of the previous acharyas is all incorrect because you think that we came from Goloka or Vrindavan. I don't know why the GBC has elected to say that we fell from Goloka Vrindavan. I believe that that will change in time. I still feel myself to be a member of ISKCON, and I will guide people toward taking initiation from gurus in ISKCON. And I will tell you why. Because the only relationship that is important for you in ISKCON is with Prabhupada. And all of the gurus, initiating gurus, both now and in the future, well past when I'm gone and when they're gone, anyone within ISKCON who is giving initiation, everything flows back to Srila Prabhupada. That is the meaning of guru in ISKCON. If you put a letter in a mailbox, which might be several miles away from the post office, that mail is delivered to the post office. Similarly, any guru in ISKCON, he's giving you an opportunity to develop a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Because it is Prabhupada who's going to bring us back to Godhead. And Prabhupada said, I will put your hand in the hand of Lord Krishna. My personal goal is to become an eternal servant of Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. I believe that Prabhupada's form, spiritual form, will engage me and guide me in my service in Vrindavan. I believe he has that type of potency for anyone who was joining ISKCON through any generational guru. Until someone is an acharya who starts their own movement, who has that type of direct relationship with Krishna, then you want to be anugatya, under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON, and taking initiation from your guru, give all respect to him, hear from him, with all respect, serve him. That is the benefit of being initiated. Learning to serve your guru with the proper humility. Because through that service, you'll get entrance into Srila Prabhupada. Very important. I don't think people understand the importance of taking Diksha initiation. I know my video will be seen a long time from now, and I encourage you all that this Diksha initiation from a guru is most important. Learn to serve someone, namely your guru. Learn to give menial service to your guru and hear from him. What is your guru speaking? He will speak to you from Prabhupada's books. That is what you will hear. You will hear Prabhupada pastimes, Prabhupada Leela, and you'll hear Prabhupada Siddhanta, the books of Srila Prabhupada. And in those books, you'll hear Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Vinod, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Baladeva Jabushan, all of the leading acharyas, things Lord Brahma said, Lord Shiva said, Lord Krishna said. This is the flow of bhakti that is coming through Srila Prabhupada, that he's giving to all of the entrants into his generations and generations of disciples. So the point today then of my talk is, don't be a fanatic. Be a simple devotee. Accept the statements of Shastra, the common general statements of Shastra that have come through our acharyas. And don't be quick to find the differences that what Srila Prabhupada spoke. Find what he said that is in agreement with the previous acharyas. That is a very important message today. And I hope I have conveyed the importance, the weight, and the meaning, so that you won't make a mistake to think that you are at the present moment dreaming while in Goloka, but you're here. That would be an offense to the Dham, an offense to Krishna, an offense to Bhakti. That's not how it works. None of our acharyas have said that. Thank you for listening. Hare Krishna.